Welcome in and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, George.
This is the first go around. I'm excited today to, chop it up with you guys, answer some really good questions. But yeah, this is the first one.
They're not going to be really good questions. They're going to be really stupid questions,
Educated.
knowing you people out there. But it will be good.
Don't hate the listeners, Eddie. Come on, man. We
We
need him to subscribe.
It's all in fun. Make sure that you're hitting the subscribe button if you were just joining us or maybe watching this back. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page. And a lot going on. I mean, obviously, basketball is in full swing. A good win on Tuesday night, Joe. That was a much-needed performance. I know that we've traded text messages back and forth, especially during the Central Florida game, that it was not a good performance.
I was really disappointed by the performance Saturday. I just kind of felt like it was a little lackadaisical, lacking a lot of energy that you're going to need day in and day out with the Big 12. So it's good to see, especially that second half. I know we talked about at halftime, like you look up the scoreboard, they probably should have been down, 6 points,
100%.
maybe, double digits. You look up your tide, you come out and you play what we would hope to see, most of the time in the Big 12 play in the second half and, come away with a 16-point victory.
And maybe more than anything, just seeing a couple balls go through the hoop was certainly important. And the 8 turnovers is something you can live with as well. So Oklahoma basketball back in action on Saturday. Bob Prisbillo and I did a hoops report today. That will be up on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page that you can check out. A little bit of a recap from the last couple weeks, as well as a preview of what's to come with Bedlam coming up on Saturday. It's a bad basketball team at Oklahoma State. So you got to be able to win that. You get there, you get over 500 in Big 12 play, and then really the next month is going to be fascinating with everything that's happening in the Big 12, but some very winnable games in Norman as well.
It's a tough schedule remaining even by Big 12 standards going forward, but you do have opportunities ahead of you, especially hopefully to secure your NCAA bid and then go in and, maybe win one, maybe both of the Kansas-Houston home games. They're going to be really tough. I think Kansas is definitely one that you look at on the schedule and you're like, that's a big opportunity just with the way they're playing and the lack of depth that they have. But so it's going to be fun to see, hopefully get a win Saturday and then tough week going at Baylor to the new pavilion.
It's not the easiest ask saying, all right, you have you finally got back over 500. Now you got a road game at Baylor, who is playing extremely well right now, on top of Kansas coming back into town on Saturday.
100%. And then, they make it through that, and the following week they have their bye week, and then come Saturday and hopefully play well in Stillwater, something they haven't been able to do the last couple of years. But OSU is not a great basketball team, but Stillwater's a different animal. So just win one game at a time, win Saturday, and then Baylor, and then, hopefully see where that goes. And then
5-5.
So they need to win 4 more games?
I think that would punch your ticket. You could probably get to 8-10, and I think with the net rating that I think checks in this morning at 27. And by the way, they had a nice a little bit of help last night with Providence beating Creighton in overtime. It was a home game for Providence, but it was still a nice win. Providence all of a sudden is kind of starting to knock on the door of the NCAA tournament, and I think that when Bryce Hopkins went down, there was a lot of people that didn't think that they'd be able to get there. They've been able to kind of stem the tide. Odora had a really nice game last night, as well as Devin Carter, who was just unconscious at times from behind the arc.
He's really willing their way to win. I mean, he took that shot from the logo last night. Ashworth made a big shot for Creighton, and then Devin Carter makes that shot of
they lose. They lose the game if he doesn't make that.
Oh yeah, you're like, but what are you doing? But he was open. Credit to him. Shot it. Then they took care of business overtime. But they really kind of are, a two-man wrecking machine right now with him and Oduro, who's playing really good. We kind of saw flashes of that, when they fall off of Arkansas. Still kind of perplexing to me just how bad that basketball team is because of the sheer amount of talent that they do have. So going forward, hope for they win. And I do think, George, the magic number is 500, but I really do think if they get to 20 wins, they're in. 21, you're looking at a really good, healthy seed, a 6 seed, maybe 22, we're talking 5. But at that point, you might think, hey, let's get a 6 and let's play an 11. And we might want to stay off that 5-12 line, especially with how some of these mid-majors are looking this year. There's a lot of good teams in those mid-majors this year.
It feels like all of college basketball, it's I wouldn't say totally open, but there's no clear. I mean, UConn's been phenomenal. Houston's been really good this year, but they just got run out of the gym by Kansas. Kansas has been good, but then they just lost to Kansas State. Kentucky's been good. Tennessee, It feels kind of open though. I think it's kind of fun, and that's. I mean, I'm not saying Oklahoma can go on a run and make it to the Final Four or something.
It
but
kind of sounds like that you are.
But I do think that I still say their ceilings around Sweet 16. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they get a really good seed.
If you got the right draw, you could get into the second weekend. Obviously, they're going to have to play well. They're going to have to shoot the ball well. They're going to have to play defense better than they did, at losses against Central Florida and the back half against the Texas Tech game. Certainly better than what they did in the last 10 minutes against Texas. But you're right. I think that we had a big discussion on the Crimson Corner about this, I think over the last couple of days, and it just seems like, I don't want to say this, once you get past a Purdue, who I think is a little bit older than they were a year ago, relying on the freshmen a year ago, Braden Smith's a little bit older. I love the lawyer kid. Can't remember his first name now.
Foster?
Is it Foster Lawyer?
There was a Foster Lawyer.
I don't think it's Foster Lawyer.
I mean, he played for Davidson.
It's his brother.
Oh, yes.
It's his brother. Fletcher, yes. Fletcher Lawyer. Yeah. Once you get past the big dogs and, the teams that are going to be the number one seeds in the NCAA tournament, I think that, it's not a coincidence that some of these teams, whether it be the St. Peters of the world or who have the Florida Atlantics, who's a very talented team, but at the same time, all you got to do is get hot at the right time. And I think that's kind of the draw that everybody appreciates about the NCAA tournament.
Agreed. Do you think this could be a year like last year where we see, 2 4 seeds and a 5 seed, and I think it was a 9 seed last year? Do you think this could be one of those years?
I think that there's a chance. I say Tennessee. I love Auburn as well. I know
Auburn's been really good.
They just beat the hell out of Alabama last night. I think it's a little bit different that they, obviously did it in
the jungle
at Auburn.
Yep.
What is it, Neville Arena or something like that? But it's going to be interesting to see what the NCAA tournament holds, because I do think that when you start working your way down, and I'm just looking at bracketology right now, when you start working your way through we'll start with just over in the Midwest, you start working your way through the St. Mary's of the world. St. Mary's is an extremely good basketball team this year. I'm trying to just think of teams that I've watched firsthand. New Mexico is an 8 seed. I think that there's a chance that Nevada makes a run, the Mountain West could get 6 teams in. So it's kind of an open draw right now, and certainly it's going to be an interesting thing in terms of matchup and how teams go into the tournament, who gets knocked out, who gets a bid stolen at a certain point in the season. But even a team like BYU last night, I think that if they were to get hot over the course of a couple weeks, all of a sudden you could look at a BYU, because they do shoot the ball so well, because they do have a veteran backcourt, and the Dallin Hall kid is one of the.
But when they do, they're really hard to beat, especially, and that's what I think you kind of see with a lot of these teams outside of those, Tennessee's, UConn. A lot of these teams are beatable, and they've all looked beatable at times, even Houston. So I
look at Wisconsin, who was atop the Big Ten standings not just more than a week and a half ago, and all of a sudden you look up and they've lost 3 games now.
They've really fallen off. They don't, I still don't quite understand. Michigan State is still kind of like a 10 seed right now, but I looked at their schedule. They have a really good win, Baylor at home, but outside that, there's not a lot of wins on our schedule. So that's why you look at Oklahoma and you're like, well, the right matchup, you play to the capability that you think they could play. They could get to a Sweet 16 and make a little noise.
The difference maker is McCollum. I mean,
Oklahoma.
If he, you're going to need him, if you're going to make a Sweet 16 run, or even win a game in the NCAA tournament, he's going to have to score probably 20 plus and have a stretch where he just takes over the game. That's the recipe in the tournament, especially when you're a team that doesn't have just a ton of talent. You need somebody that can just go get a bucket when you absolutely have to have it.
Absolutely. And I think that's when you start looking at some of these Mountain West teams, and maybe Stevens, that's going to end up top 5 in NCAA scoring all time. I think he's like a 5th or 6th year guy in Fort Collins. And the Nico Medved, what they do offensively is not necessarily similar to what Mark Pope and BYU does, but they do score the basketball at a very high rate. And then you start working your way into, everybody else. I think Boise State's a pretty strong team because they do have so many damn freshmen. So many damn seniors. Alex Rice can go get it. He went off at the pit about a week ago and knocked off New Mexico. So it's kind of fun. And then you have a team like Samford that has one of my favorite players in the NCAA basketball right now in Ochoro. He's a badass.
It's a heck of a name there, too.
I think he's going to end up being a draft guy before it's all said and done. So there's your NCAA basketball recap and everything that's happening here on February 8th as Oklahoma does head into Bedlam this weekend. Obviously a very somber, sad, start to the week. getting the news on Tuesday about the passing of Toby Keith at 62 years old after having battled stomach cancer. And, I think that certainly everybody, if you were on social media or anything like that, I thought the kind of the tribute that they did at the Lloyd Noble Center, big impact on the, obviously the Moore community and everything that he has done around here, not just in Oklahoma, but obviously on the other side of things with, the music. And it was just very, very sad. But, Joe, I know that he's somebody that you kind of relayed some of those stories on social media, just in terms of your relationship with Toby.
Yeah, so I actually, I grew up with Steelen, who's his son, same age, and so I actually got the opportunity. Toby was our elementary school football coach all the way up to 6th grade, and so I have a lot of fond memories there. We are the Mud Dogs, heck of a name. I didn't come up with it. I won't want to take credit, but I think it just kind of shows, like, at the core, and a lot of people, if you kind of seen through these stories, it's like he's an extremely approachable, down-to-earth man. And so so I had the pleasure of growing up around him and just kind of knowing him as Steelen's dad, and just have a lot of fond memories. Like he's actually like the first person to teach me how to swim in the deep end of the pool, like something random like that. But he so like a lot of fond memories, and it's really sad. It honestly is, just because you knew he was going through this, and you could see it too as well. But the games, when he was healthy, and so he loved himself some of the Sooners, and he loved football, basketball, baseball, softball. I mean, he really was a Sooner fan at heart, and it's just really cool too seeing that just the state of Oklahoma as a whole.
Sure.
You've seen a lot of Cowboy fans share fond memories.
Yeah.
Of course, the video last year, actually after Bedlam, where he was singing Should Have Been a Cowboy and Eskimo Joe's. And so, OU just got their butt kicked, and he's with, Coach Switzer, and they go to Eskimo Joe's, and he's just singing along.
Quite the scene.
Yeah, and so he was dealing with cancer then, and so it just shows his spirit and, continually want to give and show his influence. But at the end of the day, he was just Toby, and so he just was a Oklahoman at its core, a Patriot at its core, a Sooner at its core. And so just, hope continue, his memories and his music and all the things that he brought to the table are just continued on.
I think for me too, it's like there's been some celebrity deaths that kind of hit you in our lifetime. And I mean, Joe and I are the same age. Like Kobe, somebody was comparing it to Kobe when Kobe died. And I was like, well, Kobe was more shocking, but Toby was
how big he was from
huge.
the music side of it. You were showing me earlier that he has 5 of the top 8 songs right now on Apple Music.
Yeah, which is just crazy. It's this week people have been, listening to his songs and kind of remembering him. But
Sure.
I think the thing about Toby is what Joe was saying. He was one of us.
Yeah.
That's what I think really hit
100%.
hard, and not just in an OU way, an Oklahoman way.
Yeah.
He could have. There's been a lot of country singers that have. Been from Oklahoma. He lived in Moore. I mean, he stayed around.
Sure.
He would go to games and he'd go tailgate and all that stuff. I think that's what really hit hard about him dying is just he was there with all of us through all of it. And he loved OU as much as anyone. He loved going to football games as much as anyone. He hated Texas as much as anyone.
Sure.
He truly felt like he was one of us. And I only met him, a handful of times, but it felt like you lost a friend, and for a lot of people, he was a close friend. And I don't know, it just was super sad, but I thought it was cool, man. How incredible is it to see the impact he had on so many different people, sharing the stories that they had. I mean, that's pretty remarkable when you think about it. So that was the cool part, on Tuesday, seeing everybody kind of celebrate his life. And again, the amount of people he had an impact on is pretty crazy when you think about it.
Some of those too, you saw did you guys see the Stephen Colbert?
Yeah. That was very well done.
That was really cool. And just that kind of shows somebody that, from a completely, different kind of personality, different kind of area of talk to me for 10 minutes. I mean, normal people don't do that to other, normal people. So it's just in a day and age, where, relationships, sometimes are fading. It just kind of shows that he made sure to make everybody feel important. But I think it's just because you guys said, he was just an Oklahoman.
Sure.
He was a Sooner fan. He was just a Patriot. He was just another guy. That's how he felt.
No doubt about it. It's very, very sad. And I'm sure that, I would imagine that Oklahoma will do something just in terms of, I don't know about like a remembrance patch or anything like that. I just think that there will be something done probably in the coming, months or whenever that it'll be kind of memorialized, I guess, if you will. So, yeah, it was awful part of the schedule, just in terms of you're kind of in that dead spot with basketball. Not necessarily a dead spot. It's actually starting to pick up with Oklahoma softball team winning a pair of softball games today down in Puerto Vallarta in the Puerto Vallarta College Classic, I think is what it's called.
Something like that.
A big one coming up on Friday night. I believe that will be all on Flow TV. If you want to subscribe to that, I think it's only like $13 or something. It's really not too bad. And by the way, if you do the Flow stuff for softball this weekend, I believe all of the OU baseball games next weekend at the Shriner Baseball Classic in Arlington. Playing pretty well, I think, for the most part. Big opportunity with Bedlam coming up. And then Jenny Baranczyk and the OU women are just absolutely killing it right now. I still can't believe I was talking to OU Sports Information Director for the women's basketball team, Josh Poteet, about it yesterday. And I don't know if we've given enough credit to the type of turnaround that they've had and now leading the Big 12.
I mean, there was a point that they lost to Southern, and I know
it's crazy.
And Southern was like 1-9 at that point. I think their only other win might have been against a Division II foe. And so just to come from that, you kind of like the wheels were spinning and they're kind of stuck, and then all of a sudden you get to Big 12 play and they've flipped the switch. They started beating teams that they should have. Then all of a sudden you're like, wow, they're playing good basketball, and just maybe Big 12 women's basketball is not quite the gauntlet that Big 12 men's basketball is, but
if they're shooting well, which right now they're shooting extremely well, there's few teams in the country that I think can beat them because they're so good at shooting threes, and I think they shoot. We looked it up one day, Eddie. They shoot in the top 10 most threes in the country.
Yes,
and they weren't shooting well to start the year. Now all of a sudden they're shooting 40% from three. And it's okay, when they do that, they're going to beat a lot of teams. But, yeah, they've been super impressive. I'm looking here at Iowa State this weekend, and they have Baylor at home next week on Valentine's Day, Wednesday, at West Virginia, at Cincinnati, OSU at home, Texas at home, at Kansas, and then they go to the Big 12 tournament. So, and they control their own destiny right now to win the Big 12 in the regular season, which they won it last year. They won the Big 12 last year.
It would be back-to-back, right, after splitting it with Texas a year ago.
Yeah, so Jenny Baranczyk, she's done phenomenal. Hopefully she can make a run in the tournament. I know that last year they were close. They had that great game against UCLA out in Los Angeles. Maybe they could even host a regional, right? Isn't that how women's basketball works?
I think they changed it back.
Oh,
sadly,
really?
It was awesome. I thought that was the coolest thing. They did the home host. So.
All right, we ready to get into some of these questions? No, it's okay. Carrie was in the back producing. We got the Q&A portion ready to roll. So if you want to get your questions in, do I need to scoot up? I feel like I can't even read this now. Did anyone notice when the freshmen were showing off their numbers, their uniforms didn't have the Big 12 logo, not official until July? I thought it was interesting. Yeah, I mean, did they have the SEC logo?
Yeah,
it did have the SEC logo.
Yeah. A lot of the recruits from junior day had the SEC logo. I mean, they don't join the league till July 1st, but they're not playing a football game either till September, August. So why would you not? I mean, that's such a selling point of coming to Oklahoma now is playing in the SEC. Of course, they're going to put the patch here. So, of course, they're going to put the SEC patch on there.
It's starting to become a little bit more real, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be awesome.
I don't know if it'll truly set in until the first home football game where you see it on the field and you see the patch.
I think it's going to be the first road game because they've had SEC teams come through town. It's going to hit a little bit different, I think, when you go down to Auburn or wherever.
Oh, it's going to be unreal.
Do they play? I'm losing my mind. Do they play at Auburn and then Tennessee at home, or is it Tennessee at home and then at Auburn?
I think Tennessee at home and then
at Auburn. And then Texas, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Correct. So they, and that's why I think a lot of people are kind of looking at, if they play good football, they should be, I think, 5-0 heading into Texas. Of course, you're playing any schedule in college football. That's a tall task maybe, but they should be heading, 5-0 into Texas. And then that's when really things start to kick in a little bit. You start going through that gauntlet.
Here are the numbers for the incoming freshmen. David Stone 0.
Love it. I love it. There's nothing better than a really good defensive tackle at a single digit.
How about
And I like
Nigel
how he-
Smith with 6?
I like how he took it to the next level with 0.
Yeah.
6 is going to be sexy, though. That's not bad.
Reggie Powers 13, Jeremiah Nukumbi 14, Danny Okoye 16, Michael Boganowski 25, Eli Bowen 36, Wyatt Gilmore 42, James Nesta 47, Isaiah Autry 54, Daniel Akinkumi 75, 84, Devon Mitchell, and that's of all the early enrollees.
It will be interesting too to like, and I put this on the message board on the Crimson Corner, to wear a single digit number. Like, you have to be good though. You have to be really, really good. You can't be a single digit guy that doesn't live up to the hype that comes with the single digit on the defensive line.
Yeah, and on three doesn't think David Stone's going to be any good.
And
So-
a lot of that, full disclosure, Josh caught all the heat for it. It was actually George that put in the recommendation.
It was. I told him, I said, honestly, I don't even think David Stone should be ranked.
Somebody needs to clip that and then put that all over the internet. David Stone might beat you up. All right. Keenan wants to know who replaces Nunez. Talking about Jay Nunez, who is headed to Alabama to run their special teams operation. And we talked about this a little bit on the Unofficial 40 this week, just in terms of it's kind of interesting. And it's kind of a weird spot because you have Jay Nunez leaving, but he was actually an analyst for Oklahoma. He wasn't on the 10-person coaching staff or on field coaching staff. So, like, how do you go about filling that void? Because it has to be somebody that is willing to come in and for the, better, I guess, he's not going to get paid as much as a regular coach.
Correct. And for those,
How much was Jay making? Do we know?
I do not know. I don't.
Okay.
I didn't have his contract. I would guess somewhere around a few $100,000.
Sure.
$100,000, $200,000, somewhere in there. Because I mean, full-time assistants make, up $500,000 minimum typically. So he's probably like half that maybe. But for those that don't know, every team in the NCAA has 10 full-time assistants. Jay Nunez was not a full-time assistant, but obviously he was full-time on staff as an analyst. But he headed up the special teams unit with, DeMarco Murray. He was in charge of kickoff return. Obviously, being a guy that used to do that in college, he kind of was in charge of that. But Nunez really did a lot of the punt team stuff, a lot of the field goal kicking, all that stuff. But I'm not sure who's going to replace him. This was not a situation. I know a lot of people out there wanted Nunez to leave or OU to get rid of him. This was not a situation where OU really wanted to do that. If they wanted to do that, they would have done that back in December when the season was over. So this was a situation. Alabama came along and they wanted to hire him. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer has put together a really good staff down in Tuscaloosa, so they wanted to bring him in as their special teams coordinator. I don't know what Oklahoma's going to do. I would assume they'll go out and they'll hire another analyst. Zach Alley is somebody that has coached special teams before. In fact, he was named Special Teams Coordinator of the Year by Football Scoop in 2020 when he was doing it for Boise State as well as inside linebackers coach. So I would think Zach Alley's going to have some type of role in special teams, kind of like DeMarco Murray, but I don't think he's going to certainly lead the charge on special teams. I would assume they'll bring somebody from the outside. I don't have a list of names that they would do.
I think that'd be kind of a tall task to ask because Jay Nunez came from Eastern Michigan, I believe.
Yep.
And so, they might go look at a guy who's sitting at a Group of 5 school, assistant coach to come on because he will make more money as an analyst at OU. 5. The way special really focuses on the kickers and the punters, but each coach has, their unit that they work on. So, Monday, if it's kickoff return, DeMarco would take it. And of course, Jay's organizing practice, the drills, but they're all coaching it, outside of like Brent Venables, maybe the coordinators. Well, maybe not with Zach Alley, but typically, they may not have as big of an influence, but those assistant coaches are charged with a lot of special teams duties. And so, while, Jay was kind of, the fall guy last year, especially maybe even myself with the questions surrounding punter, they started the wrong punter, but or maybe Elzinga's just a gamer. I think all the coaches will pick up the slack and they'll hopefully find a guy, with a little bit of good kicking experience and has good knowledge in that area.
They just were it has to improve. Like, I don't know who they're going to hire and how it's going to change, but it needs to be better. And I think we all know that. Field goals, they just weren't good enough. Zach Schmidt was not good enough. That's why they brought in the kid from Florida State, they're also bringing in the freshman for Moore, whose name
Liam Evans.
Yeah, Liam Evans, who's supposed to be really good. Gavin Marshall is supposed to be back, I believe. So that has to improve. Punt return, other than after I saw a stat that was something like after Gavin Freeman's punt return for a touchdown, the season opener, he had 17 punt returns for a total of 40 yards. That's just not very good. I think they ranked 95th in the country in punt return average last year. And obviously that what was it, 80-yard punt return that he had at the beginning of the year kind of skewed that too. So that has to improve. Kickoff return was okay. I mean, Jalil Farouk it wasn't bad, but it also wasn't great either. So I think they can improve just about everywhere other than really punting ended up being pretty good by the end of the season. I mean, Luke Elzinga kind of saved the season at punting back half of the year. So
is it too much of a bias to say that in SEC field position is a battle? But I think some of these games you might go to an Auburn.
It's going to be huge.
It's going to be so much bigger.
Yeah.
You might have a score in the low 20s that wins the game. And so that is going to be a big deal, especially punt return if you're losing yards on punt return or just gaining 10 yards. So I think it's kind of a different style. Of course, the SEC, it's a little more physical, but I think the field position is going to be even more important than it was before.
How awkward is it inside of a locker room when you know that special teams just isn't good?
It's pretty awkward. I think, in the past, when I played, there was, maybe another unit of the defense that wasn't very good. And
yeah,
so,
everybody shits on them, and then you move on to special teams.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's no real blame passed around, but I think everybody's human. Everybody's in the back of the head. They're like, oh, well, if X, Y, and Z played better, maybe as a unit, not
Start
even an individual
fingers
player.
And all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, in the back of your head. And so it is a little awkward because, the coaches want to win, but they kind of feel the stress too, when you come to the locker room and give up 50 points or special teams has 2 turnovers or 2 big, baffles. And so it is a little awkward.
You lived with Austin Seibert.
I did.
Right, in college.
And so I actually lived with Connor McGinnis in Austin the year that we played Houston and the kickoff.
The kick six.
Yeah, the kick six. And they were not very fun to be around after the game.
I can imagine.
Connor
just trying to chill.
I don't think so.
I could pronounce his name. I just didn't pronounce his name. It's crazy that, Gary was asking if Austin knew that I could have pronounced his name or that I just didn't do it. It is one of those things, though, that it's kind of crazy. Like, Austin's still getting opportunities in the NFL.
He is, and he's made it as a place kicker, too. I thought he was a good punter as well, and that's why it was so cool that he was able to do both.
Sure.
Especially from a roster spot perspective, and that's why he was a scholarship player, too, from the jump. But, he's still getting opportunities. He had a couple of practice squad. He signed for, I think he probably played for 2 different teams this year, active and kicked. And
I know he was with the Jets for a second, and then who did he end up signing with in the last week? I thought that might have been the Jets. He was with somebody else before that.
I'll have to look it up. Funny enough, he usually posts his next move on Facebook.
I wanted to say it was the Lions.
I thought it was too, but
he initially played with the Lions.
Well, I thought he was with the Browns too.
Sure,
he was with the Browns for a minute. I can't remember.
I think the Lions signed him with plans to play him, and then the kicker got magically healthy on.
It's still crazy to me that you look at somebody like a Gabe Burkich, and he never really caught on with anybody. Never really got the opportunity.
No, is that?
I thought he was going to be. I thought he had the best leg that maybe anybody had at Oklahoma.
100%, and he did have some inconsistencies towards the end of his career, but still, from a pure leg perspective, I thought he was one of the best kickers we've had in, I don't know, since a while.
It's that damn burrito. Everything went south after kicking the burrito during the bye week.
It went bad.
Cody wants to know, you had to start a coaching staff. You taking and why?
Todd Bates. Now I'm assuming I'm the head coach in this situation.
Yeah, we'll say that. We'll say that.
I'm taking Todd Bates. I think he's one of, if not the best defensive line coach in college football right now. He'll be able to recruit. He can teach. I think that he's very knowledgeable. Has been around the game. He can help you a lot in a lot of different ways. The second one's tough because you wanted to. I'm going to take one offensive, one defensive. I'm leaning towards Emmett Jones just because I think he's been, but he's always just fascinating. So I think I'd go with those two.
I think that there is a certain characteristic within both of those guys, and that they do recruit at a very high level. And Emmett Jones has already kind of proved it. Todd Bates has obviously proved it in terms of what he brought in and what he did at Clemson. hard to disagree with both of those.
Yeah.
If you could probably, I guess, like the other side of the argument would be if you could get Brent Venables to run your defense. Like,
Oh,
do you
yeah,
take,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it, but I think that we all kind of agreed that that would be the obvious.
Well, yeah, and I would just, I'm guessing he's talking about assistant coaches,
Sure.
not
Yeah.
because otherwise, yeah, of course you take Brent
Sure.
to run your defense. The other one that I was gonna say on offense is, and this is a guy that I've said several times, I think he might be. I don't know if he'll be the next head coach that's on staff, but I do think he'll end up being a head coach sooner rather than later. And that's DeMarco Murray.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people will be like, really? DeMarco Murray? He hasn't called plays. He hasn't done that. I just think that he has the mannerisms, the ability to recruit. I think he has the knowledge for the game. And I think he wants to be a head coach someday. And I think that opportunity could come. I could see a situation where, in a couple years, maybe Barry Odom leaves UNLV and DeMarco being from Las Vegas, maybe he gets Shane Beamer. Where see that happening someday for DeMarco.
That
What
kind of has
say
to
you?
do with his characteristics, right?
Yes,
The way he
his
carries
personality.
himself. Because a head coach, of course, is so much more. They're running the program, and
Yeah.
they have all those other responsibilities. And so, Beamer didn't call plays, but he may have not had the success, especially last year that we expected. But I also